I hate to break the fishing news up, Yaremchuk, but I'd like to speak about the ice hockey.
Congratulations, you're one of the 13 listeners of the Real Life Podcast.
We just traded a migraine in for like an orgasm.
Might want to mark that down, Yaremchuk.
Yep. All of my projects are on schedule until they're not.
A member of the Nation Network of Podcasts.
About as funny as we're going to get today.
Episode 239 of the Real Life Podcast. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk. Bag Milk's here. Chalmers is here. Jay is here. And I believe every member of the podcast is hungover today on a Monday morning.
It's the season, you know?
It is. Tis is the season.
The thing about my hangover, though, it's not from yesterday. It's from Saturday. And it's from Friday. And, like, I just didn't get over it yesterday. And you're just, you know, like the second day when you just have zero desire, zero energy to do pretty much anything.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Hence why this is my very first podcast ever from not inside my truck.
Yeah, I noticed that. I thought it was upgrade here.
I am at home and I am in my office and I am not coming out.
You sound great, Chalmers.
You do.
You don't look like a guy who's on a 2-day hangover.
The bag's under my eyes. The bag is different with you.
I'm with Chalmers. I'm feeling the effects of the weekend myself. This is part of the aftermath of being subscribed to 2 advent calendars. Yaremchuk, I had to catch up on a few days, and paying the price right now.
I just, I was having a little bit of a Sunday fun day, and when you start making Caesars and they just hit perfectly.
Oh man, Sunday afternoon drinks that hit perfect are the best.
Yeah. And so one Caesar turned into 6, and then I'm like, well, I'm bloated. I should switch to beer because that's responsible. And then
how does that help you with being bloated? Damn.
Yeah,
it didn't. It
that
didn't. Well, here's what I wanted to have a rum, but I didn't have any mix. So, like, I could have done the straight rums that Old Dangerous Wade provided, but I wasn't in a fancy boy mood last night. I was getting piled up.
But what if you didn't think of maybe just then skip the dishing, like some dinner and getting them to bring you pop?
I did think about that. But by the time that thought rolled around in my head, it was already like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, all right, I'm probably at a solid 8.5 out of 10 here. Do I really need the rums? Yeah.
Well, see, and the beer, like literally, beer is the only thing that gets me bloated. I'll have like 2 beers and I have to switch to anything else. I don't know how you go 2 beers to stop from the bloat.
Well, Nation beers are delicious, man. Like as soon as it hits my lips, it just goes down the hatch. I don't know what you want from me.
It just, I don't know. Maybe we have different. It just hits us inside different. Mine just turns to foam the minute it hits my mouth. It's just disgusting feeling.
I was also doing shots of tequila last night at like 11 o'clock. Like, it was bad.
Wow. You had a Sunday, sir.
That is a runaway.
I had a fucking rough betting day yesterday. A real rough betting day. And I just everything spiraled from there.
Did you hit your lock of the week?
No, I didn't. I lost. I think the spread was 7.5 and the Chiefs won by 6.
Oh, that pissed me off so much, man. Like that game.
The field goal. There was a field goal.
Yeah, they kick a field goal to like bring it within 6 with 40 seconds left instead of like trying to get the quick touchdown.
I had the kicker on my fantasy and I was just like, oh my God, they're kicking a field goal. I can't believe it.
Yeah, so I lost that by 1.5, and then Scott Hastings sends me a message saying he's fading Bag Milk this week. And then that game, I normally would take them, like I'm just starting to dabble in parlays, Chalmers, and so normally I've been going on money line on parlays, but I picked the spread on that specific one, so that fucked my whole parlay yesterday. It was a bad scene.
I had 2 of those this week where the one game that you throw in just to kick the odds up just a bit, go and lose. Like the one sure thing that you're supposed to put on there. I fucking hate that. Like, and that's the problem with parlays is even if you'll get one right that you probably shouldn't have, and then get one wrong that you shouldn't have, and it just screws everything up.
Shout out to Jay, who was the only one who got his pick of the week correct with
I'm coming in hot.
Washington +3.
Strong.
Bagged Milk missed his by a point. I missed mine by a point. Chalmers, you missed your pick by roughly
23.
Around a little more than that, about 31 points.
Dude, the Bears, like they've been so bad, and then what are they going to put up 37? Can we talk about my betting couple weeks has felt a lot like Dan Bailey's kicking for the Minnesota Vikings.
Brutal.
where the commentators on the radio are literally being like, "He's broken. Get him out of there. He's broken." And they're just freaking out. Dude missed 4 field goals yesterday to mix with the 2 or 3, I think, last week. Oh man, you got to be feeling bad.
After.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then last week, Mike Zimmer, their coach, said, you know, like, we're not worried about him. We're gonna stick with him. We're gonna let him work out of this. And then after the game yesterday, he said, "We're not worried about feelings anymore." In this dressing room, basically saying like, "We like the guy, but he is gone. He gone. That's too much."
It's worth noting that Scott Hastings only went 1 for 3. So in week 13, our group went 6-1 with our picks, and this week we went 2-5. So not a great week, but
that's the way she goes. Though, sometimes, you know.
Sometimes it do.
Ben the spread's hard.
It is.
Ben the spread is fucking hard.
It is hard. It really is.
Yeah. It's basically like you're trying to give yourself a 60% chance of winning these bets by doing research and shit. Like, that's all you're really trying to do. All right. This hungover edition of the Real Life Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Oodle Noodle, who could probably cure your hangover as well. I think their food is that good. Check them out. 14 locations in Edmonton. 15 is coming out in Fort Saskatchewan, which is good news for people who live in Fort Saskatchewan. We got a listener profile this week, and it's one of the guys who's in our fantasy football league with us here on the podcast, and the playoffs for that start next week. But Electronic Jordan is our listener profile. He installs and programs home theater and automation systems, you know, speakers in the ceilings, TVs on the wall, iPads that can turn your lights on, that kind of stuff. He lives in Calgary. He's lived in the Calgary area his whole life. He's got a wife, 2 kids. He's a big technology nerd. He adds in here that any sufficiently advanced technology will be indistinguishable from magic, which feels like something that belongs on a t-shirt. He's a huge NFL fan.
Whoa. Say that again.
I read whatever they put in here. So
yeah, I know. You slow it down too.
Any sufficiently advanced technology will be indistinguishable from magic.
Okay. Nerd alert!
So,
did he give us a number at least?
Yeah.
I don't think he gave us a number.
Like a phone number?
No.
So,
a number. Oh, yeah. Okay,
his name is very on brand. Which I respect. But so is that in that statement? Is he saying really good technology is at the same level as magic?
Yeah, you won't know how it works.
Always
the
above
best technology in the world will be so mind blowing that it will feel like magic. Is what I assume that he's saying there.
Yeah.
Well, I would agree with that. Go back to 1995 and show them your iPhone and blow their fucking minds to their skulls.
How are 4 people talking to each other right now and hearing each other through little tiny earbuds? I don't understand how vibration of sound makes perfect music come out of these things. Never understand it.
And we're bouncing off satellites and shit because there's phone calls and FaceTimes.
And you can't get popped for a rum at fucking 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday.
That's not magic.
That's pure.
The magic is there's an app to fix that problem.
All right,
Electronic Jordan. Just wait. He changed his name on our thing. I can't find him. What's his team name again on this?
I don't know. He says he's a huge NFL fan and he's a Patriots fan, so he adds that Bills, Browns, and Cardinals can suck it, which is just a very rude thing to say. Also, the Patriots are hot garbage this year. Says not much of a hockey fan, but a big, in all capitals, Oilers fan. He says he doesn't really care what else happens in the league. As for when he started listening to the podcast, he says he didn't listen to any podcasts until he heard the episode where Wanye swooned over Jordan Eberle, and he hasn't missed an episode since. His favorite podcast moment, he says there's not a single moment, but when we go completely off the rails, he loves it, yelling about parking, fishing, or whatever.
Anyways, his name on the season, or on the fantasy football, is this season not going great. 5-8, not doing well like John Jordan.
Pete Chalmers just bulldozing through your little rant there.
He had no interest in hearing the rest of that profile.
I thought he straight up. I couldn't hear a word he was saying. He was totally frozen.
Oh, really?
That's why I said since. I was like, is anybody going to talk here? This is sounding very awkward.
I was definitely talking the whole time.
You legit cut out to me. You were not there to me.
All right. Well,
I'll have to listen to that one back and see how that one went, because I feel like that was magic or really bad software technology.
yeah. He
That
added
was
that
not
he
magic.
he added that he loves when Wanye, Jay, and Chalmers tell tales of the old days, waxing poetic about the great times they had 15 years ago. As for his favorite Oilers moment, when he was a younger man between 2000 and 04, Jason Smith was building a house in Calgary, and his father got the contract to do the house. Said Gator gave him tickets to a Battle of Alberta. They drove up to Edmonton. He also gave them tickets to the morning skate, so we got to watch that, and he got to stand outside the dressing room for autographs. Got every player except Ryan Smith. Big George was the last one that came out, signed a hat for him as well. And he gives us an oddly specific detail about that hockey game there. Said the Oilers lost the game, but he distinctly remembers a play late second, early third period where the Flames scored. It was unclear if it went in, so play continued. And then the Oilers scored at the other end of the ice. They reviewed it. The Flames did score, so they took away the Oilers' goal and gave it to the Flames. I don't remember that happening because I was very young and don't remember that game, obviously. But do you guys have any recollection of that happening in an Oilers game?
I wasn't really listening.
What year would that have been?
He said anywhere between 2000 and 04, so a pretty big window.
Yeah, it seems familiar. I don't remember it like vividly, but like I remember yelling at the TV for getting robbed on a goal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it. I don't remember what I was wearing or which TV I was watching, or I might even been at the game.
Says he's never had Oodle Noodle, but it sounds fantastic. Expand down south. So another podcast listener who wants Oodle Noodle in the Calgary area. His answer to the bonus question, which is, what's the most exotic place you've ever listened to the podcast? Says he's been traveling all over Canada for work, so he's listened in a plane a bunch of times. And he says, if that doesn't count, Brockville, Ontario is his answer.
Yeah.
And shout out to the people of Brockville.
He put this at the end, and he goes, so you'll read anything I write? I'm a very naughty little boy. Chalmers didn't cheat. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk.
Ron Burgundy.
Wow, okay. Electronic Jordan is your burner account?
Apparently.
Okay, so there's I kind of wish that we would get to see more from people like Electronic Jordan, because he is very active. He was probably the first. I think actually he sent me a message saying that he was the first person to get. Yeah, I am a loyal listener, Chalmers. I started the fantasy league, even though I've done shit in it this year. That was his last message to me on Twitter. But I don't know anything about what he looks like, how old he is. Do we know any of this in his profile?
He has a white. God,
you
my
building
mic is terrible.
I got to temporarily tap out of the podcast. This is real life. Got a text saying, "Can you call me ASAP?"
Okay.
Real life. I'll be right back.
See you, Jay.
Okay.
When Jay comes back, we might also be joined by Jeff Woywitka, former NHLer. We're going to talk to him a little bit. So that might just happen, and Jay will pop back in at a random point, and Jeff Woywitka will be like, what the hell is going on? How many people are on this podcast? Okay, that was interesting, and I totally lost my train of thought because of it.
Well, how old and how, because we know
he has a wife and two kids.
Yeah, so I mean, he could be anything. He could be 20 to 50.
I guess. I don't think he's 50. I would say my guess is that he's like 30.
Okay.
Couple young kids, maybe 35.
I'm very interested to talk with him because I have done a lot of houses with a lot of different types of systems in them. We used to do this one called the Connect 4, and then it was called Connect 5, I think. And these things were so cool, but they got so, like, basically you were putting iPads into your walls 1 year, and like 2 years later, everything was wireless. So you spent all this time putting wires in your house, and then everything went wireless. Like, that technology has moved so fast. I'd be very interested to find out how he keeps up and how, just like, I don't know, what's the next thing to come for him. He's an interesting guy. I didn't know that's what he did.
I like to ask people this sometimes. Chalmers, what did your first cell phone look like?
My very first cell phone was a Panasonic, and it looked like a stick of butter. That's what it looked like.
Just like a little brick one?
Pretty much, yeah, just like a little brick one. Well, you know what? My parents used to have the gray Motorola's. Remember the gray Motorola?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
It just had the flip down bottom?
Yep.
Yeah, that was my parents' first. My dad had a cell phone that was in a bag that had a cord.
Bag phones were the best. I worked at a cell phone store for a long time, and there was guys that worked out at camp that they would go legit find bag phones because that was the only way to get reception up there.
Yeah, my dad used to have one of those in his car. He thought he was pretty sweet because he had one of the first cell phones.
Can someone explain to me what that is?
A bag phone?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I've never heard of this.
There was so much that came with the phone because it weren't small that it was basically like a landline phone, but in a bag that you could take and put in your car and plug it into the cigarette lighter. It would give it power, and you'd literally have like a phone with a cord that the cord went to the bag where you dialed the numbers. It was like a transmitter, and it had a big antenna on it, and that's probably why these guys got better service. It had way more antenna mass than some of the other cell phones back in the day. But yeah, it was a straight up leather bag. It actually looked kind of stylish, like a man bag.
As we wrapped up that listener survey, Chalmers, I got a DM on, this would have been on Saturday. This is from Josh, and this one was specifically directed to you. So people can DM me if they want. They're open.
Oh, goody.
Slide in. It says, can you just let Chalmers know that not everyone that is an avid listener of the Real Life podcast submitted a listener survey, but there are a silent majority that have been listening for years and will continue to do so. Merry Christmas. I hope Frank is well. And also, chumming the water is cheating. Regards, keep nude forever.
Oh, I love it. I gotta share with what just happened. I had a text message that says, "Can you call me ASAP?" So
was it from Wanye?
I'm not going to say who it was from.
Okay.
And then I call, and I'm like, "Okay, is everything okay?" Oh yeah, no. I'm like, everything's fine. I'm like, I left the podcast to call you. Can you call me ASAP? And they're like, "Oh, yeah, sorry. Just go back on your podcast." And then proceeded to tell me everything they wanted to tell me, and kept me on the phone.
Was it an ASAP required?
I don't think you actually told us anything there, to be honest.
Well, because I'm protecting identities. I'm just sharing in real time what happened. They just said, because basically I called. They're like, "Oh, it's not a big deal. Go back to your pod." And then they proceeded to tell me everything that they wanted to tell me.
Did you tell them that this was a blatant misuse of the ASAP acronym?
Yeah. I was like, you said ASAP. I'm like, and then they said everything, and I was like, "Okay, I'll think about that, and I'll call you back later." And they weren't happy with that.
This was like sending you a 911 page in the middle of the podcast.
That was a 911 page.
I know who this was, and I don't even have to think about it. I'm not going to say who it is. I won't say who it is. But I'm almost positive I know who this probably was.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We got a guest coming up on the podcast. Always love when we can get a chance to chat with a former NHLer, and I'm excited for this one. Jeff Woywitka, who is one of the few people who can call themselves Edmonton Roadrunner alumni, is going to join us on the pod. He also played in the World Juniors in 2003. He was a first-round pick, 27th overall, for a product of Vermillion as well. So a small-town guy that found a way to make it to the show. And he also got to coach one of the most exciting prospects in the Oilers system, Carter Savoie. Jeff Woywitka, now an assistant coach with the Sherwood Park Crusaders. He got a chance to work with Carter for the last couple of years. So we'll chat a little bit about an exciting Oilers prospect as well with Jeff Woywitka, who joins us now on the Real Life podcast. Former NHLer, now head coach or assistant coach, of the Sherwood Park Crusaders.
Well, don't give me that much credit.
That's a detail that I should not be getting wrong. And before we get into the hockey stuff, you said you're out on the farm right now in Vermillion?
Yeah, I just came out about 4 days ago. I'm just out, and it's I'd say about 10 miles northwest of Vermillion, and we're just grew up here, and my family still lives here. My mom and dad, and then my brother and his family just live about a mile up the road on their own farm, and that they raise a few cattle and horses. But the main farm is here that I'm at, and we do grain farm, and my dad still has a few cattle. So it's quite the business, but it's fun, and it's good to get away from the city.
So I have family that's from Vermillion as well, and the one thing that I always know, I swear I do. The one thing I always know, and I need to know if it's just like it for you too, does your whole family still come out to that farm like all the time and just get together and have like family gatherings out there? Like, is it just like a hub for everybody?
Well, it is, yeah. And we like to call it a place where I always love coming back. Like, I used to come back after I was playing hockey or that. This would be my home. And obviously I have the house in Sherwood Park where I spend a lot of time at, but this is kind of my getaway. And usually for Christmases or Thanksgivings or that, we're all here, and this is kind of where we all gather and we get together and have one big dinner or that, and everybody can kind of, catch up, and it's just good, and it's nice to be out in the country too, where you're not getting bothered by anyone, and you kind of on your own little schedule.
What's the outdoor rink scenario like out there on the farm?
It's good. I'd love to send you guys a picture.
Yeah, do it.
I've been out there with my nephews, and my brother built one, and we usually had one at the farm here too, but he's got a nice one there where we get out there and we do some skating, and we build our own rink every year, and that's kind of where I learned too. And we learned a lot of stuff out there. You learn more than you think when you go around and not be on a schedule.
Yeah, not to get on the quad with old Uncle Rob. That's all.
Yeah.
if it's past noon, don't get on the quad with Uncle Rob.
Exactly.
So you mentioned like that's kind of where your hockey roots were. So like on that farm on the outdoor rink, is that kind of where your big development years kind of were then?
Yeah, you bet. I like my dad was really involved in hockey, and he was. My dad played a little bit with the Red Deer Wrestlers a little bit. Didn't go very far, but my dad's dad passed away when he was 59. So my dad ended up taking over this farm when he was 20 years old, and he ended up just having, this is where our farm was, and he ended up teaching us. And I owe a lot of credit to obviously my parents and my dad for, obviously I think he was ahead of his time in the teaching side of it. When I ended up moving on, and I owe a lot to him for sure.
I love the contrast of you learning the game out on the family farm on the outdoor rink to now you're coaching junior hockey, where, I mean, some of these kids that come into the program in the AJHL, like they've had specialized coaches for 5 years already and all that stuff. It really is fascinating to look at the difference of how the development years can kind of go now, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. The game has changed a lot. And I just remember even when I was playing in the Western Hockey League in Red Deer, back in the 2000s, early 2000s, 01, 02, like obviously I think the AJ was a little bit different than it is today. I think you're seeing a lot more studs coming out of the league now as far as higher draft picks. You're probably top 2 lines and your top 4 D pairings now are, legit could play in the Western Hockey League. So the gap has closed there in a lot of cases, and it's closed too because guys want to take a different road and slow up their development a little bit and give themselves more time to develop and have the opportunity to work on their skills, get stronger. Where me, I was a bigger kid at 6'3", and I got pushed pretty hard. I think when I was in junior, and I came out of pro and ended up playing in American League at 20, but I still think I was forced a little bit too quick, and I wish the process was slowed up a little bit. Even though I was a bigger kid, I was still needed room to develop and build confidence too.
When you were a young kid in Vermillion, what was the organized hockey kind of like there? Like, did you have to go far away to get like a good competitive team for you to play on?
Well, I ended up playing my first year Pewee in Vermillion. Had a few good coaches here too, and learned a lot. I didn't move away until my second year Pewee. I went to St. Paul and played Pewee AA in St. Paul for 1 year, and then I switched. And my bantam years, my midget, I went to Wainwright to play with the Polar Kings. So I ended up playing a couple years there. I ended up playing my first year bantam with the Polar Kings, and then my second year bantam, I went to midget AA when I was a second year bantam, and then from there I got listed with Red Deer and played in the Western League at 16, which is probably unheard of now.
Yeah, definitely.
You had some good teams with that. That Red Deer Rebels team was good teams, eh?
Yeah, no, we had a lot of I think I was talking to Carter Savoie last year, our head scout. He was at a few of our games scouting. They were all watching Benning and Savoie and a few other players on our team. And he says there were 17 players off that team that played an NHL game.
Yeah, when you look at and you know what the best part about it is when you played your first year, it was mostly just Alberta and Saskatchewan boys on that team.
Yeah,
and there was one guy from BC, and but just no Europeans or anything at that time.
No, Sutter just loved his big farm boy.
Dude, and you got Ross Lupuschuk from Edmonton who played CAC. Like, this is what a cool team.
Yeah, it was. It was a great team and a lot of good players who ended up having great junior careers. Like Mapletop led the league, I think, that year. And he was an unbelievable player. And my defense partner, Jim Vandermeer, was a beast. Like,
you must have felt you're a big human at 6'3" right now. And with Jim Vandermeer,
I felt safe out there with Jim.
Top 6 scorers on your team had over 130 penalty minutes each in the league. That's awesome. That's so good. Big tough guy like Vandermeer.
Yeah, no, it's always looking back, and that was a pretty unique team built with, like, we had Martin Erat.
Yeah, that was your first Russian to come in.
First Russian.
first European, from Czech.
Yeah, and we had we had skill and toughness, and it was a pretty unique team back then for sure.
For you, like, is that when you got to Red Deer, is that kind of when you started to think like, okay, you know what, this could actually become a career for me? Like the NHL is a realistic possibility, or was that something you just kind of believed your whole life? Like you just knew you wanted to eventually play in the NHL?
Well, I think starting in, everybody had a goal. I think when they were younger, like, oh, if you can play in the Western Hockey League at 16, you got a really good chance. Like it's hard to do, and it's, whether it's just a kind of a learning for you or not, it was the experience. And I think that kind of built the stature as far as me building my blocks towards, thinking I could end up being a player, or, I just got to keep working. It almost gives you confidence when you play at that young. It gives you confidence to keep building, and it gives you something to strive for, which, when you enter any level you play at, you got to build, and you got to be excited about and something to strive for. You know what I mean? Like something's got to push you along the way, and that just ended up pushing me, and I ended up having good coaching and Brent Sutter, and we ended up playing on some really good teams, which fell into place there. My draft year, like I said, we won the Memorial Cup when I got drafted, which didn't hurt. And me and I think Colby Armstrong went in the first round that year, which was good. And then the year after that, it kind of led into the World Juniors, which made the team played in the World Juniors at 19. So it was kind of a pretty unique junior career. And you look back and it was like, wow, it's pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
At that level, right? So,
do you get a little reminiscent around this time every year, thinking about World Juniors and just them coming up? And what do you think about what it was like when you played?
Yeah, I just remember, like, the only thing I wish was back then we had the social media we do now. Because, like, it was played in Canada, it was at Halifax, and it was just, the stands were full. Like, it was just it was unbelievable. And that was the year we had, like, 2-2 on our team, and Upshaw.
I think Fleury was your goalie, right?
Marc-Andre Fleury. Like, we had a team, like, everybody loved 2-2 back then because he was the train coming in. He was everybody just wanted to see him. And I ended up rooming with Jordan Tutu at the tournament, and he was selling caribou jerky out of the out of his hotel room. And I'm like, what are we doing here? I'm like, you're selling jerky out of this room. Like,
oh my God. How much did he have?
In and out the whole time, and it was pretty amazing. Like, looking back, like, those stories don't happen now, right?
No, you guys had a cool team.
That is unreal.
Yeah.
What was that tournament like? Like, you mentioned, the stands were packed. Like, for you, was that just a whole nother world? I mean, the WHL is a big deal, and Red Deer draws great crowds as well, but I'd imagine that's just a totally different world getting a chance in that tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still remember to this day when I first got made it, because they'd phone your room, and if you got a call around 2:30 or 3 in the morning, whether it was to you or your buddy, you knew it wasn't good, and you didn't want to answer that phone, because the first year at 18, I got cut, and I was rooming with Duncan Keith, and I ended up getting sent home that year, and he made the team. And me and Duncan were always, we played against each other when he was in Kelowna, and we became pretty good friends at that tournament and throughout our junior career. And then the next year when I did make it, I was rooming with Trevor Daly, and I'm like, oh no, here we go. Somebody's going home here. And the phone rang, and I answered it, and I said, Trevor, it's for you. so I do that. But you know what? I can't be that mad, because Trevor went on to have a really good NHL.
Oh,
yeah, no doubt. And you can say to him, look, man, I was you last year. Like, don't worry.
They might have made a little mistake there. That's all right.
Young Alex Ovechkin would have been in that tournament as well, right?
Yeah, we played when he was with the Russians. Yeah, we lost to them in the final that year. Yeah, so I ended up scoring the winning goal with 4 minutes to go against the U.S. in the semifinal.
Holy!
That place erupted, and that was like the highlight of obviously that tournament, and a lot of big time for my junior career was that moment there.
Like, what I think is different about the World Juniors from now and to back then is whenever you started the tournament, the very first game, there was a point to go out there, and every single person had to lay the body one time. A big one too. And you don't see that anymore, but that just set the trend for the tournament. It let them know you can't mess with the Canadian boys because they're coming in to hurt like people.
100%.
And you don't see that anymore. Like this year, like last year, I've noticed that for the past couple of years, you don't get to see that. So how good does it feel going on your first shift and just knowing, look, I get to fly at somebody?
Exactly. No, and that was what it was all about. That's why Tutu got so much respect, and even a couple years after that, when Dion Phaneuf laid out those two guys, the double Dion, they call it.
Yeah. Like, it's just like in one shift, you get five almost like goal scoring applauses in the whole ring. And I couldn't even imagine what that felt.
That was the tournament. That's a great point because it's different now. There's more. Obviously, it's more of like the pro game like the NHL, where there's more skating, more swinging. It's all about angles now rather than finishing the guy, right?
I seem to recall you guys had it out for Ovechkin, did you not? And just single him out and just didn't you run him out of the building?
Yeah, I remember like we were, Mark Habscheid was our coach there, and he preached to us like, this kid's a young kid, but he is good. Like, just be aware of him. Like, cause Alex was just starting to come up because he would have been what, 17?
On that team, he was 17. Yeah,
he was 17, so he was pretty young then. And like we were, I was 19 then, but I just remember like my first glimpse of him, and I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, wow, how good this kid is for that young. Like and you don't realize.
He had the visor you couldn't even see through, right?
No, he had the tinted visor and everything. Like, he was.
Because that wasn't a reason to want to run him. I don't know what
was. Before the World Juniors, you mentioned getting drafted, first round, 27th overall to Philly. What was that day like for you? I mean, hearing your name called, and I mean, in the first round, nevertheless, as well.
Yeah, it was probably the first time my parents ever got off the farm. They actually flew down to Florida, and we had a family vacation there, and I think it was 3 or 4 days we flew down there for, and I just remembered it was the funnest time. It was in Florida, Fort Lauderdale there, and we just got together and we kept it. I had to do a few interviews when I was there, and do some little bit of extra testing before the draft, and it was just kind of like, it was a lot on my mind, but it was also exciting because, I was ranked in that 15 to 30 range, and you just never knew where you were going to go once you sat down. And I just remember that day I was just sweating, and it was hard. It was a hard day, but, obviously sitting there and then getting your name called and then going on stage, and with Bettman was there, and then Bobby Clark, and then Paul Holmgren were on stage with me, and that was picture I have hung up right now, and I love it. It's a cool picture.
It must have been pretty wild going from being a small town Alberta kid to NHL draft, right? At the time, did you think about any of that, or was it just kind of all flying in your face as a kid?
Well, I think when you look back, you always you're thinking like, wow, this it's pretty incredible as you look back now to think about how hard it is to make it and to get to that point, and to meet all the people that you met along the way, and how hard and how much work it took, how many little, the progressions you had to make. I still like coming back though, and I still like right now. I love giving back to the younger kids, and I like helping them out. I love teaching. I wish, I'd like to get my own thing going more or less sometimes in the summer, where I'm doing more of like a defensive camp or more one-on-one stuff with a lot of these kids on my own time. So that's something I'm going to maybe look into as the progression here continues. And just because of what I've learned here with the Crusaders and the side of it, it's a lot different than the playing side. That's for sure.
When did the idea of coaching kind of come to you? Was it something you've always wanted to do, or was it later on in your career that you wanted to become a coach?
Well, my last year was in Germany. I played in the DEL, and then I took a year after that, and I ran an academy with Wade Burt with St. Thomas More. I don't know if you guys know him out there, but
yeah, he has a new program out here. Do you know what it's called?
That 200 hockey.
200 hockey. That's the one. Yeah,
so he started that a little after, but he kind of got me going, and he got me a little bit involved with the academy, and then I kind of, I like doing it. I like going out there, and then one day, I think it was in August, Adam and Kyle. And I knew Kyle from before when I used to skate with Kyle during the lockout years. They let me skate with the Crusaders, and I knew Kyle, and Kyle spotted me at the Home Depot. And And he says, "There's your new assistant coach, Adam," because that's when Sean Bell had just went to Nick with Tim Fraggle. So that's kind of opened the door for me to get in with the Crusaders, and it's been good because we've coached some good teams, and it's been convenient for me in a sense where I'm 5 minutes from the rink and I can do my thing, and it works good, So I've enjoyed my time there, and I've enjoyed every minute learning and coaching some really good hockey players along the way.
Well, thank you for all the wonderful work you've done with Carter Savoie.
Yeah.
What a player! Like he's, but that's, you can't teach that. What he has is a gift that, like, I think I heard Bob Stauffer say on 6:30. He said he could be the steal of the draft, and he's turning out to be right now.
As somebody that watched him play, was it almost surprising to you to see him go in the 4th round, where a lot of people had him going kind of maybe in round number 2?
Well, that's what we all kind of thought, maybe leading into it. We were maybe a little bit, I think, shocked that he dropped the 4th, but I think guys were questioning this and that, but we never questioned that at one point. He's just a hockey player. He's almost like that Ovechkin type where he gets one shot and it's in the net. Like he plays well defensively. He does what he has to do, but when he gets the puck, he puts it in the net. So it's hard to teach guys that can do that, and he's proving it at the next level in a hurry.
When he was dropping down the draft like that, and I heard the same things like that. People were like, "Oh, it's his fitness," or "Oh, he has bad body language." And I watched him for 2 years too, and it was frustrating to hear that because it's like that's just such a lazy narrative to throw at a player who, like you said, he has the thing you can't teach, like that goal scoring touch he has, that ability to get to the soft spots in the offensive zone. Like you can't teach that stuff, and teams it felt like were passing up on him for just an incredibly lazy narrative that really wasn't true.
No, he's got to release that. Like it's so quick. I've never seen a release so quick, and it's the puck's on his stick, it's off his stick, and I don't know where people were getting the work ethic because he wanted to be the first guy on the ice for practice every day, working on his shot. He'd come to me, he's like, "Jeff, I need to work on my shot. I feel like I need to get some reps in," and we'd go on the ice early, work on shooting, work on our catching, releasing, just the little things. And he was always a guy that came to the rink with a smile and wanted to get better. No different than Mike Benning, who's doing marvelous things too in his college career too. And those two are going to be players, and they're two good picks, and both teams should be really happy with what they got there.
Are you at all surprised at how quickly they've adjusted to the college hockey game? Because I mean, they're producing like they're back in Sherwood Park again.
Yeah, no, they don't. They're two kids that do not let anything bother them. Like they're oblivious to the outside world, and they don't really know what's going on.
That's also a skill.
They're hockey players, and they're born to be hockey players, and that's all they're. When Carter Savoie got interviewed, he's like, what did you? He's like, I just want to be a hockey player. I was on this earth to be a hockey player, and that's what he's doing. And that's hard to teach that, right? And he knows he's good, and that's scary, right? So.
Former NHLer Jeff Woywitka joining us on the Real Life podcast. We got into the coaching there a little bit, but I got a couple other questions just about your own career. If you count the trade of that 27th overall pick, I mean, you were technically traded 3 times before you ever played an NHL game. I mean, for you, like as a young guy, was that like frustrating for you to just be always thrown into these moves? And they were huge trades as well, like the Comrie deal, the Pronger deal. What was that like for a young kid to be getting traded that much?
It was awful. It was awful. No, I was, what, looking back, I'm like, I'm taking the good with that as far as, I know my stint in Philly, I spent a half a year there, my first year pro, and then I got traded. And what happened on that, when I was traded my first year, I'll tell you a little story. Paul Holmgren came down, and it was about my 20th game of pro in American hockey. He came down, and both rinks are connected in Philly, right? You got the both practice rinks. You got the Flyers on one side and the Phantoms on the other side. So Paul Holmgren's coming down, and he's grabbing me, and it was after about my 20th game. He comes and grabs me in the dressing room, in the Phantoms room. Says, "Hey Jeff, how you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm doing pretty well." He's like, "Would you mind just coming up, and Bobby Clarke wants to talk to you for a minute, see how things are going." So I'm like, "Oh man," I'm like, "Okay, sure." So he's asking me how things are going, and I said, "Oh, things are going good." So as we're walking up to see Bobby Clarke, so I get up to Bobby Clarke's office, and it's sitting between upstairs in between both rinks, so we can watch both practices. And he calls me in, I sit down, he's like, "Hey Jeff, how you doing?" said, I'm doing well. How are you? He's like, doing well. He's like, I just want to make sure you're all settled in. Everything's going good and you're getting comfortable here. I said, no, everything's good. The guys are good. I appreciate it. Everything's good. He's like, well, if you're good, I'm good. I just wanted to do the check-in with you. So go downstairs. 2 weeks later, I get Paul Holmgren comes down, grabs me. Same thing. I'm like, oh, what the fuck does he want? Like, I'm doing well. Like, everything's good. Like, what do I need to go back up here? And, I sit down. I go upstairs. Paul Holmgren grabs me. I go upstairs. Bobby sits me down. He's like, hey, Jeff, how you doing? I said, oh, I'm doing well. Everything's good. He's like, well, I just want to let you know we traded you to the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for Mike Comrie. I said, oh, man. I'm like, first of all, I was like shocked. But second of all, I'm like, wow, I get to go home. I'm like, this is incredible. I get to go back to Edmonton. I probably knew I was going to the minors, which their minor team was in Toronto with the Roadrunners at that time. So I ended up going from the Phantoms to the Roadrunners. But it was an amazing experience.
And one thing I like to ask guys that made it to the show, like when you finally got that taste in St. Louis, did you ever have like a holy shit, I'm in the NHL moment or something like that? Maybe where you're lined up at a face-off and you kind of look at who's coming down the other way. Is there anything like that you can kind of remember?
Yeah, my first game was against the Detroit Red Wings in St. Louis.
Wow.
And that's when Hasek was in net with Lidstrom, Rafalski, Brendan Shanahan, Steve Yzerman, Jasper Zetterberg, and I said, I don't belong out here. This isn't for me.
Jeez.
So,
wow.
Just the Hall of Famers and that's what a game to start with. I think we ended up losing 4-2, but that's the year I think they ended up winning a cup that year, but they were just loaded. Like, Holmstrom was there, Franzen, like just beasts, and just Dan Cleary. Like we had, just looking at some of those guys, you're like, incredible, right? So
what a way to work out the nerves against the Red Wings.
No kidding.
Yeah. Oh, it was good.
Holy.
You did get to play the one professional season in Edmonton with the Roadrunners, right? When they came here during the lockout. Yeah. I mean, what was that 1 year getting to play in Edmonton like? And also, what was the AHL like that season? Because it was loaded up as well, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, the AHL was good. Like, we ended up having Garrett Stoll and Torres on our team, and, Brad Winchester, Brodziak,
Toby Peterson, Tony, your leading scorer, Tony Salmelainen.
Yeah, and then Yanni Rita was there too.
Oh yeah,
remember Yanni Rita? Yeah, he was on the back at Rocky Thompson.
Oh, geez.
Blue hair.
Wow. Yeah.
231 penalty minutes. A guy named Dan Baum, who wasn't far behind him with 2.
Dan Baum was there. Yeah, no, it was a good team, and obviously, like I said, playing in that league at that time, like there was a lot of good players, and the league it was almost that perfect time where it was like halfway between the NHL and, it wasn't such a big jump. So it was actually a really good development year and good hockey at that time, that's for sure.
You had friend of the podcast as your assistant coach, Kelly Buckberger. What's it like playing for Killer Kelly Buckberger?
Oh, he was a classic. Like he was a guy that just loved to be on the ice. He was a jokester. He was always bugging guys. I think he called Brodziak. He always called his nickname was Pasanka because that's the Easter or
the big Easter egg out in
Vegreville. He just called him Pasanka.
Oh yeah, because he's from St. Paul. Right?
Yeah, he's from.
Just called him Pasanka. I love nicknames. I love hockey nicknames. There's absolutely nothing better because they have like 4. You got to go through 4 different avenues just to realize what it's about. Sometimes they're the best.
Oh yeah, big time.
One of the other websites we run is hockeyfights.com. In your career, I had it up here on the site just exactly how many.
Don't remind me. My players in Sherwood Park remind me the whole time.
I see some scraps against some former World Junior teammates here.
Yeah.
Seabrook was in there. Tutu was in there. Wayne Simmons was in here. You're chucking them in some of these.
Oh yeah, I'm really chucking them. I remember I fought some, even against, I remember fighting Steve Staios and Ethan Morrow.
Jeez.
Just some old grizzled veterans that just couldn't, they were tough cookies. Like they were, Seabrook was tough. Simmons was another underrated. Like he just, some of these guys, they throw them and they're still skilled players that can, they can handle themselves, and it's impressive at that level for sure.
Do one of those really stick out to you? Like your first NHL fight, I think that would have been the one against Jordan Tutu, right?
Tutu, that was at center ice in Nashville, and he would chase me around. He would chase me around in Red Deer. I fought him 8 times one year when we were playing against Red Deer and Brandon. He would chase me around the rink every time. He would come off the bench. He would do this, and it just led into the NHL. That's like it's just. What
I just never understand. I never understand it. It's like the Yablonski and Morasti being cousins and fighting on the ice.
Yeah.
You two were roommates at World Juniors.
He just wanted to fight me,
and now he just wants to fight you. I do not get it.
Every day he wanted, like he was. Oh, he was just. It was the. Like,
did it have to do with the beef jerky? Did you steal?
I don't know. I don't know if I got him.
Fucking guy.
I didn't put any in my suitcase.
Oh man. Before we wrap up here, like I was going through your career here before we got going, and like your career spanned over a really interesting decade. Like you kind of came in sort of towards the end of like the dead puck era, and then after the lockout, the game really, really transitioned. And I mean, in your last couple of years of pro, that's when things started to, I think, kind of really start to speed up in the NHL. Could you feel that difference in real time as your career kept going?
I could feel it like from my first few years till the end of it. It was quite an adjustment as far as, you know, your feet had to be moving. It was a quicker game. There was less punching and grabbing. Like you watch games on TV from the 90s and you're just like, wow, it was a tough game too. Like it was still, it was still like everybody says it was so slow, but it was still quick. Like it was still quick. It was just hard. It was hard to find room at that time. But, you know, for me, I was always a pretty good skater, and I adjusted kind of well as the game speeded up because I felt like my skating was good, and I just felt like it was more my type of game where the clutching and grabbing and the more, you know, I was a big guy. I played physical at times, but wasn't overly physical, but I always liked, you know, good stick, good gap, like good body positioning more so than crushing someone, right? So I felt like that kind of helped me out towards the end of it, and it was a massive change, that's for sure.
I've always been sorry. I did want to get one more question in about kind of your European stay, playing for Augsburg Panthers.
Yeah.
Just like, I always am just fascinated by guys that go over there and what they feel like when they get there. You know, like you're from Vermillion. I know you've been, you know, around the world probably a little bit, but having to live in a country like Germany in Augsburg for 2 years, like what was it like just making that decision and then going and doing that?
Well, my first time I went, it was about November, so it was kind of half a year where I just decided to go because there wasn't much offered over in North America, and I think it was time for me to get over there, and if I wanted to do it, I had to go do it. So I ended up leaving in November, which, you know, I was excited because I still was going to play, but I was also a little bit nervous because of, like, you know, you're moving far away, the time change, everything's kind of, you know, playing a factor where you're like, geez, I hope this, you know, new country can't speak the language. Everything kind of
you've seen guys that come to Canada to play hockey, and maybe the language barrier is really tough for them, and they kind of maybe become outcasts in a dressing room until they can, you know, figure some things out. And now you're kind of stepping into that role. And I've always just like, there's got to be some trepidation about that.
It took a little time. Like it took a good maybe 2-3 months before I got comfortable. But once I got comfortable, I actually enjoyed it. And it was one of my probably funnest times of my playing career because, you know, it was more of like a laid back where you get up, you go for coffee. It wasn't like the fans were good. Like everything was just kind of, it wasn't like the North American game where it was like the pressure. It just seemed like there was some tension taken off of that, which, you know, guys would go over there and still play hard, still battle, compete, and you want to do good. But it was more of like just a different mentality rather than being over in North America. It was all like the pressure and just, you know, what's at stake, I guess, right? So.
Yeah. And so how do you pick a team like Augsburg? Like, are these teams that have reached out to you, or did you know somebody on the team, especially going halfway through the year?
Well, it was a tough, like I had to I didn't really know, I knew a couple players on there, but I didn't know too many. And I was it was almost like a shot in the dark. My agent was telling me at the time that it was a good city. It wasn't overly big, and it was a good place to kind of get started in, especially I hadn't been over there. It wasn't like the place like Munich or Berlin, like where it was overwhelming. It was more of a smaller city where it was, easier to get around in. It didn't seem so overwhelming. So I think that kind of helped me too, where it was more, more kind of my cup of tea, where it was, it was easier to adjust that way. Cause I know living in New York for 1 year there when I played with the Rangers, it's overwhelming.
That is overwhelming, I bet.
Overwhelming. So it just felt more laid back, and it was more, I guess you can say it just, I had a chance to breathe and kind of get settled.
One last question.
Interesting to kind of look at your second year in Germany as well. There's a handful of Alberta boys on Saski boys here too, so that must have been like a little feeling from home, even though you're way overseas.
Like Ryan Beta was on that team, Mike Connolly, couple other kids. Who the heck was the other? There was a couple other kids that played, like they were American League kids or played a few NHL games. Like it was a good team. Like, but we weren't like. I just remember getting to like Cologne and like they just signed that. Remember Ryan Jones that played with the Oilers? He'd be there, and like a few other guys that you look around the league and you're like, holy man, you didn't even realize how many good players were over there at the time until you looked at the rosters. Like how there's so many good hockey players, and it's hard to even play over there now. Like it's as far as being a hockey player, it's hard to, they think everybody can just go to Europe and play. Well, you can't, because it's loaded with good hockey players, and the trickle down effect is huge because guys aren't playing even that long in the NHL now. Like just think what this is doing to a lot of players, the pandemic right now, as far as kicking players out of the league.
So that kind of ties into my last question about European hockey. What's going on in a guy like Rob Brown's head? He was a defenseman that you played with in Augsburg. Now, he went there in 2004, straight after Colgate, and he's played in Europe until present time, meaning he spent over 16 years in Europe.
That's crazy.
Like, you go there, you must find like a wife or something. Like,
a lot of
people
guys
just fall in love with it, I guess, eh?
Yeah, a lot of guys have find like a lot of guys who go there or go to Europe, they usually find, like you said, a wife, or they get a home there and they just love it and they just won't come back. Like, and I can see how players people can get sucked into that lifestyle, because it is a nice laid back lifestyle. Like they deliver mail around Augsburg on a pedal bike. They don't do it. It's just, that's how the pace it is. Everything's just slow. You can get comfortable, and the food's good. Everything is just kind of just easier to adjust than it would, than it is in North America, where it's just a fast pace. Everybody's going like more pressure almost, right? So
yeah.
So you mentioned, you wouldn't mind starting your own thing, working like one-on-one, developing with players. Do you ever do you want to eventually make it to like the pro ranks as a coach or anything like that? Or are you kind of comfortable with, the junior life and maybe starting your own thing in a development process?
Well, I think right now it's just more or less for me, it's just getting comfortable and getting the knowledge behind me and getting the base where it's, learning new things, learning new tricks. Like I met up with Rocky Thompson in the summer and I picked his brain a bit as far as the coaching side, because when you're not in the NHL or you're not around those people, it's hard to, you can lose touch on what's kind of going on, little tricks, what they're working on, what's the new ideas. Like I like to pick his brain on that. And it's a good option for me because it helps me go back to my players that what I've learned, but I can also add things for them to teach them. So I think for right now, I'm comfortable where I'm at. Like I had the opportunity Sutter had reached out to me a year and a half ago and wanted me to go be his assistant there in Red Deer. And me and Kyle and Adam had to talk about it. And I just felt it wasn't the right time to go there. Obviously it's right down the road, but that might be something in the near future. If I want to move up, maybe go learn with him for a little bit. That's always in the back pocket. So we'll see how it kind of goes from there. But right now I'm content where I'm at and I'm working with a bunch of good people. So I'm happy.
Jeff, unless any of the other guys have another question, I really appreciate your time today. And it was a fascinating look back at your career.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Anytime. It's nice to meet all you guys too. And you guys stay safe and have a Merry Christmas and take care.
Yeah. See you, buddy.
There we go. That is Jeff Woywitka, almost 300 games in the NHL. Spent a couple of years over in Europe as well. Now coaching the Sherwood Park Crusaders out in the AHL. That was great chat. Really enjoyed having Jeff on the pod.
He was generally excited to talk to us. That seemed good. That was very good chat.
That was a good chat. You know what? He just, if you just ran into him at the Home Depot, I would just think that guy's a hockey player.
Yeah.
He just looks, sounds, and acts just like a hockey player. I love guys like that.
Yeah, he's got the jaw of a G.I. Joe figurine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Man.
Well, like I said, as that was going on, I had some scraps. I'm going to throw some into the article on Oilers Nation about it. But some of the scraps he got into, they were chucking him.
Oh yeah,
they were going there.
Him and Tutu.
He was a big boy. He says he didn't play tough, but like it was in him.
That's he's one of my favorite stories. Like he said, the story of the Sherwood Park Crusaders coaching staff coming together in the local Home Depot, like everyone sort of running into each other and being like, "Hey, maybe we should just be the coaching staff from now on." It's hilarious. It's a great story.
That's small town Alberta right there.
Oh yeah. And I liked his insight on Carter Savoie as well. That was another good timing for this interview with him.
We just need to make sure that we're always giving Jeff Woywitka credit for everything that Carter Savoie does from here on out.
100% from here on out.
Yeah. Because I always like to be the one that comes in and asks the questions about the things that other people might not know.
Okay.
I had totally forgotten how the Toronto Roadrunners became the Edmonton Roadrunners, like during the lockout. Like, I don't know if I just I don't tend to remember things I don't care too much about, but old fun, like things like that. Like, so the lockout happens, and what happens? Like, why did we all of a sudden have a pro Roadrunners team? Somebody explain that to me. I don't totally remember.
I don't remember either. Like, what was the timeline like of the lockout happening? And were they just kind of like at the last second, fuck it?
No, that's why they did it. They did it so they could still have hockey in Edmonton.
But who did they play?
Well, they played in the AHL. They just moved them from Toronto, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, so like the A still played, and just like so those guys were not like none of those guys were like full-time NHLers then at that time. They were just all
or the ones still in their entry-level contract. That's why like there was like the pseudo NHL, it was like the youth NHL year. Yeah, and then we also had the supercharged World Junior team that year.
Oh yeah, okay. But and so the players that were striking or basically being locked out, the ones if you were able to go back to your entry level, it was just around hockey. It was like just known that it was okay to go back.
Yeah.
Like you weren't.
They were allowed to. Yeah, they were. And then the ones that were outside of their entry level were going to play in Europe.
Because like guys he played with Chalmers here, just looking at some of those Edmonton Roadrunners, I was Rafi Torres, Brad Winchester, Jarrett Stoll, Kyle Brodziak. So there's those were NHLers. So good team.
Yeah.
I just watched him. I just watched this fight with Tutu. Jesus Christ! To have the sack to fight that guy that many times.
That's the first one I'm putting in the article. Is the first crap against Tutu because it is
the nut sack underwear it takes. Is that a good segue?
That is a good segue into our friends at Twig and Berries, who got some great stuff going on for the holidays. Head over twigandberries.ca. They got the holiday gift box still up there, I believe. Don't forget, if you use the promo code NATION15, you'll get 15% off your order. But yeah, they got a whole holiday collection up right now as well. They got some outdoor rink gear, which looks really fresh. All that good stuff. They got stocking stuffers on the side. Their website is really clean. Like, it works well. And if you order, free shipping over $100 in Canada, or if you're in St. Albert like me, free delivery right to your door. So how about that?
So then you have no excuses not to get me the nut putty or what they've got going on.
Nut putty.
I'm trying to find it on their website. What did we talk about last week? I totally forget what it was called.
Something with there was like a balm.
The ball wash. Yeah, it's the whole gift box with the ball wash and the nut spray and all that stuff. Find that on their website.
Give a little spritz down there.
The other story that Jeff brought up. Jordan Tutu selling caribou jerky out of their hotel room at the World Juniors.
Sweet. I bet it was delicious.
That's the funniest shit ever, man. That's
hey,
so
man, you got
funny.
a side hustle.
Yeah.
Got a side hustle. Always on the grind.
You're focused on the gold medal, but after practice, I got to meet up with someone because they're buying a couple packs of my caribou jerky. Like, it's just great. That was great stuff.
And how does one find out he has it? Like, gotta go word of mouth at this point.
Well, he's working. That means, and that's without social media. So he was working the phone.
Yeah, when Jeff said, "I wish that we had social media back when I played at World Juniors," I was thinking to myself, I probably would have gone the opposite way. I'm probably pretty glad that you got to play in a time where there was no social media, because I'm sure the World Juniors was a lot of fun for a lot of kids without parents there for the first time. And like their hockey friends,
I think he wanted to live tweet all the caribou jerky sales.
Yeah, I mean
that's what he wanted.
Tutu would have moved more units if he had a Twitter account.
Exactly.
Oh, big time.
I just want to add something from my personal life right now while I record the podcast. I'm looking out my window, and in the complex across the street from me, there's an older lady. I want to say she's in like her 70s or her 80s. And she's always out on her balcony smoking. She smokes a lot. And it's so cold out right now that she isn't going on the balcony. She just has her screen door open. And every few seconds, I can see her lean up to the screen door and blow her cigarette smoke out of the screen.
Might as well be smoking in the house at that point.
Oh, man. It's been incredibly distracting here because I'll just look and like I can't see into her unit, obviously. But like her mouth just gets like close to the screen. And then I vaguely see her face and it's like smoke coming out.
Was she just over there crushing rats or what? How many darts she go through in an hour podcast?
I don't know. I haven't recorded in my office for like a month now probably, so I haven't had a chance to keep tabs on it, but I'd imagine she just put back 2 cigarettes and now the blinds are closed, so she's done. But
I wonder what is she going to watch her stories after this, guaranteed?
Probably, yeah. Also, like she's on the 2nd floor. That's a lot of stairs for an older person to be doing to get up to their unit. Anyways.
Keep fit, have fun.
Yeah. All right, let's.
I don't know. My brain's running on half cylinders today. What do you want from me?
It's a good thing we had Jeff Woywitka to carry the podcast today because no one's brains were really.
Thank God.
Yeah.
You texted this morning. Oh, we got a guest. I was like, thank God.
I think I got one other former Oiler that might be able to join us this month. Also, I want to bring this up. Did you guys see the new Mighty Ducks trailer?
I did.
Yes,
I did.
I think it looks legit. I think it looks good.
Wait.
I didn't know it was I thought it was just a movie, but I didn't know it was a series. That's pretty cool.
Oh, it's a series? I thought it was a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote about it on The Nation on Saturday, and somebody corrected me. They're like, no, it's actually a series. So I hope they have cool, like, puck tricks and shit in this flavor for kids to try. Because I remember when Russ Tyler pulled out the old knuckle puck in Mighty Ducks 2. I was whipping that thing around at practice the following week. So I hope they have that kind of stuff for kids, because that was the best.
The Michigan.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have that.
Oh, absolutely, the Michigan, yeah.
So you know what the fun part about this too is it's like going to be on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Like now.
Well,
I think you can go watch this on Disney Plus.
I don't think it's out yet. 2021 is when it comes out.
Huh.
But Dylan Playfair's in it. He's obviously the son of Oilers assistant coach Jim Playfair. And,
so Letterkenny?
Yeah, Letterkenny as well.
Fame.
So I'm trying to get him on the podcast. We'll see if that goes anywhere over the next month. As you can imagine,
that would be amazing.
He's a pretty busy guy with the projects he has going on right now. All right, let's wrap this up. Episode 239 of the Real Life Podcast. Big shout out to Jeff Woywitka for joining us a little bit. That was a really good chat. We had another listener profile brought to you by our friends at Oodle Noodle. 10% of all in-store proceeds are, and curbside pickup as well, right, Jay?
Yeah.
And but it's also Newsmiss. It's Newsmiss.
It's Newsmiss. Share the video. 12 days of Newsmiss. A bunch of local partners. We've all collaborated. We're giving away stuff for the next 12 days.
All right, there you go. Check it out.
New prize coming out around 3 o'clock every day, Tyler.
And that's on at Oodle Noodlegram on Instagram?
At Oodle Noodlegram, Oodle_Noodle on Twitter, and on Facebook, it's just Oodle Noodle. So all 3 platforms, get yourself a chance to win some cool stuff. Very cool stuff coming.
And
I'm also going to double down on the Oodle Noodle kind of announcement because we're going to be launching a video. There's so much going on right now. It's holiday season. We want to do a lot right now. So one thing that we're doing is we're partnering up with the Boyle Street. I don't know why I said the Boyle Street. We're partnering up with Boyle Street. And we're going to do a call to action. So we want to do a call to action to nation citizens. If anyone can, we're doing a fundraiser. If anyone can donate, $2, $5, $10, whatever it is, if they can spare anything during this time to help support Boyle Street, Oodle Noodle is going to match your donation up to, we're going to provide, hopefully we can top up everyone's donation to $5,000 to try to raise $10,000 for Boyle Street because they need some help right now.
All right, good stuff as always out of Oodle Noodle. Also, I was super late getting to the ad read today for Twig and Berries, so I apologize for that. But make sure you check them out. There is still time to get that special man, that everyday caveman in your life, some Twig and Berries for Christmas. Promo code NATION15 gets you 15% off your order. All right, we will be back on Thursday with some betting talk with our friend Scott Hastings, and I think an update on the mouse issue as well, because Wanya should be around for Thursday's episode of the pod. For Chalmers, Jay, Bag Milk, I'm Tyler Urumchuk. Thanks for tuning in to episode 239 of the Real Life Podcast.
Great job on making it through the entire hour of the Real Life Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast from.